Hello Internet, it's the human Sona of Sandbird Smash. So last time on the channel I told everyone here about a new challenge I was starting where I was going to complete one video game from every major franchise. The video ended up being a little bit of a cluster since I was explaining the rules of the challenge, why I had made it, and all the stipulations that games were going to need to follow to make it onto the list. If you haven't seen it already, you really should go and watch it, but if you haven't, I'll let Past Joe take it away. Adam, run the repetition ray! What game series qualifies for it?
Frozen acorn looking at Sonic Colin.
Mario, Animal Crossing, Mario, thanks for playing. One game. Persona.
Launch your chicken at the nearest shareholder.
So this time I thought I would make things a little bit more focused and tackle a specific genre as opposed to throwing 3 random games at you guys. So I figured I should stop fighting with Adam about his insistence on Joe-Gun PNG and instead fight with some video game characters. No, Adam, dude, I'm serious, quit it. We just got new art commission for this video, and I'd like it if you could take this a little bit more seriously. You're doing it again. You're fucking doing it again, aren't you? It's on screen, isn't it? Dude, come on, we fucking talked about this. The fighting game genre has always been one that pretty much eluded me. It's not like I have no experience whatsoever in it, but I've never really spent a dedicated amount of time trying to get good at any of these video games. At least not one with my boy King K in it. So I figured, why not knock out as many of these games as I can in one go? Not only are fighting games like these incredibly important in the competitive scene, but also video game history as a whole. So we're going to be looking at some industry veteran series here, such as Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, BlazBlue, and Guilty Gear. I really wanted to include Under Night and Birth due to adoring the game's character design and art style, and really wanting a reason to pick it up for a while. But they don't really meet the 3 games or more requirement. But like it, if there are any other fighting game franchises that you think I should play, or maybe some that even belong on the list, let me know. We can always do a follow-up to this video. These games, more so than any, are going to be my weak spot. Aside from maybe Smash Brothers, I'd say 90% of what I'm doing when I'm playing a fighting game is going hog wild on any button on the controller in front of me, with maybe only 10% of what I'm doing being slightly intentional. So while I might not be great at these games, I'm going to make a genuine effort to learn the mechanics and get good at least with 1 or 2 characters. And as stated previously, the rules when it comes to the arcade section are going to be a little bit different from the standard. Given how different these games are from the standard action-adventure fare, I'm going to have to find some derogatory means of saying I played enough of the game to check it off the list. This could be unlocking all characters, getting through a campaign mode, or some other means of completion. At a bare minimum, however, I will have to play at least 5 hours of the game. Any less wouldn't be fair to the source material. Also, take into account that these games are best experienced with a friend or played online. Oh, and one more thing. This will go without saying for the rest of the series, but it will be incredibly imperative in this genre of gaming, but I'm not going to factor in any DLC as part of the review. We've come to a point in recent where game developers have been releasing their games half-baked, feigning the ignorance of post-launch updates, where by the end of the time the game's support has run dry, what we're left with is the quality of content that we should have been getting available from its release. What happened to you, Mario sports games? I swear to God, dude, if they somehow fuck up the next Mario baseball game, I'm gonna fucking lose! Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against DLC as a common practice. If I feel like a game has a solid amount of content on its own without needing any additional purchases, and the added DLC feels like it's truly additional content, then I'm not gonna bat an eye. But if I feel like they were left out for the sake of making some extra cash, Adam, I don't really know what to put here, so just find some aggressive or angry footage to splice in.
Holy.
With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and... Oh, what's this? Internet's own Steven, the Guilty Gear historian? I bet you're here to woo me over with the wonders of Guilty Gear and try to get me on the magic of it, huh?
No, you idiot. I was actually here to talk to you about BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. I've been playing it a lot recently, and I gotta say, it's one of the most fun...
No need to twist my arm or anything. I guess I'll go give Guilty Gear a try.
What the fuck? No, Joey, I thought we were going to do a BlazBlue review together. You sent me the script and everything. I spent the past 2 hours going over my lines.
Alright, so before we can get into some of the heavy-hitting titles such as Street Fighter and Tekken, we're first going to need to take a trip back to the past, to the distant year of 1998, when Guilty Gear first hit the arcade. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Joe, why are you doing a whole video on games you are shit? Why aren't you playing Strive? Well, I thought it would be beneficial to take a peek at what the older generation of these fighting games looked like. Arcade fighters have been such a pivotal part of the gaming industry and history, so I feel like I'd be doing the genre a disservice by only playing the newest and shiniest versions of the game. If I have a frame of reference for how these games used to play back in the day, it can make it so I can compare the evolution of these games over the years and see how much they've improved. Plus, the original was like 80% cheaper than Strive, and I work as a DoorDasher, so... This is usually part of the review where I tell you a bit more about the story, but the plot of this franchise is convoluted. Seriously, I know I've been making jokes at his expense for a lot of this video already, but my friend Steven actually made an amazing video summarizing the whole franchise in under 14 minutes, and I highly recommend you check it out. He also made a video comparing me to various anime boys, and it's a good comedy watch. And honestly, I'm a little upset it's not getting as much love as his stupid fucking fighting game documentary for a franchise that no one gives a fuck about. One of the things I was happiest about when playing Guilty Gear was how simple it was, especially for its time.
Hey everyone, hope you don't mind me quickly pausing Joe's words of wisdom just to make a slight adjustment to the visuals. There, isn't that much better? Seriously, if you're gonna whack borders on your 4x3 game re-release, can you at least make them look pretty, and not just some boring, grey, clunky box that hangs from side to side of my screen? Thank you.
You pick a character and go into the arcade mode, fighting up against every other fighter in the game. You spit some quips at the losers of each fight and get to the end, where you have to go up against this, lanky necromancer guy who, wants to resurrect the first Gear, who has the awareness to control all the other gears, but when you fight them, it turns out it's actually Soul's girlfriend, and seriously, just go watch Steven's video. He does a lot better job explaining this than I do. Well, if I can't go over the plot, I might as well go over the roster. When deciding to go into a run of arcade mode, you get to pick one of America's favorite family members, such as Beer Belly, Gojo, Ragnar the Brunette, Captain Shmi, Chun-Li but awesome, Captain Crunch-chan, Grandpa Cloud, Seto Kaiba, XX Bloodcleaver XX, and Dr. Legman. And if you're good enough at the game, you might be able to unlock the bonus characters of Bayonetta and Gurren Lagann. I personally think jumping into this game was an excellent starting point for me. Something that will remain consistent no matter what for the rest of the video is that I am absolutely terrible at fighting games. I have trouble putting in the convoluted inputs, and my stupid baby gamer hands get sore way too fast. So I suppose an advantage of playing a game as old as this meant that I got some time to adjust. I mean, each character only has a handful of inputs to learn, but don't expect me to learn any of them. I'm walking in Patinkman every time and double punch until the cows come home.
I did it! I saved the world!
Even though I'm playing the PS4 port of the original, I was extremely impressed for a game of its time. The music and visuals hold up really well, and while the plot of this game is brief, it serves as an excellent jumping off point for the rest of the series to follow, which it must have done pretty well seeing how many games have gotten released after the fact. But for now, I'll say that it served as an excellent introduction arcade fighter and was a great jumping off point for the franchise. And I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would for a game of its age. Well done, Guilty Gear. You're gonna have a bright future ahead of you. As long as you don't convolute your story and stick to your basics, you're gonna be okay. Which is why you're gonna slide right into the C tier. BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle is a spin-off game in the very popular BlazBlue franchise. I've seen this one come up almost near constantly in my YouTube feed, so I'm really excited to see what's going on in this game. I am picking up, however, that the game is played in duos. If only I had someone else here to partner up with on the narration too. That would make things really easy, and a little bit more entertaining.
I'm still here, you know.
Well, it's unfortunate there's no one here to help me with that, so I guess there's nothing else to do but then to start the game up. Whew. Alright, yeah, look at the art. Holy shit, the animation in this game is really nice. Oh, look, here's all the new characters. I can't wait to get to meet them. Huh? Wait, aren't those the guys from Night Under Birth? Wait, did Did I put the right game in? Oh god. Oh, I'm gonna look like such a fucking idiot! I don't know squat about these guys! Maybe I can just keep going. Maybe no one will notice. I'm sure I'm making just some sort of mistake. What the hell? Okay, now I'm definitely not seeing things right. What's the Persona cast doing here? Well, I guess I already own Persona 4 Arena. It wouldn't hurt to do a quick brush up. Okay, I'm all caught up. Guess I can give it another try and— oh, you've gotta be fucking shit! Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle is a Blaze Blue game, I think. The game, as you can tell by now, primarily features characters from 4 major franchises, such as Night Under Birth, Persona, Blaze Blue, and Ruby, for some fucking reason. Well, I suppose it shouldn't be a problem. I do love all these guys. Ruby, you, Hyde, and Ragna. The gang's all here. Well, I guess there's no better place to start than with the story mode, huh? I guess I'll play through Night Under Birth. Maybe I can catch up on what I've been missing in their game. Okay, there's a lot going on here. I'm gonna do my best to break it down. So the story goes that Hyde, Linnea, and Stupid Face here are all woken up in this bizarre world. They're questioning if it's the work of the night, and I wish I could tell you what that means, but I haven't fucking played the game. They soon eventually get some answers, however, from this voice in the sky that goes by the administrator. She tells the group that they've all been chosen to partake in a game. Each group is given a keystone, and they have to protect it, and be the first group to collect every other keystone in the arena. The winners get to return to their home reality, while the others, well, I guess it's just assumed they get left here.
You didn't explain Jack!
From the get-go, it's made very clear this game isn't what it seems. The rules of the game are loose, and we have a lot left to be explained. But no matter what story mode campaign you decide to play through, the progression is basically the same. The main character of a given series wanders around this giant arena. In the efforts of trying to get some answers, they end up stumbling upon a lot of other characters from a lot of different franchises, and are constantly getting dragged into fights by the administrator, who, by the way, is the most annoying character in the game bar none.
What the hell are you doing here?
Hyde!
Come on! Be a man!
Can't fight if you're not part of a tag team, right? I'm being theatrical.
You do this for long enough until someone decides to approach you and tell you what's really going on. The administrator is using the keystones to gather information and data from your fights with all the other contestants. She wants to use this information to become all-powerful, and enough to invade all of the contestants' home worlds and take over, turning them into even more arenas. So you and your given partner at the time fight her in her keystone form, smash her to bits, think you win, then through some twist of fate, you either end up winning or, how do I explain this? So in the Blaze Blue and Ruby endings, everything ends up working out okay. You get a shot of Ragna and Christina V laying in this field, and it's fine. I'd love to tell you more about it, but this game isn't offering me as much information on Blaze Blue as I was hoping it would. And then in the Ruby ending, they just end up going back to their dorm. Not much else changed. But in the Night Under Birth ending, everyone ends up getting brought back to their town, and are forced to fight through the night. And in the Persona ending, honestly, the best one, everyone just goes to school. Everyone is now a part of Inaba, and I wish that were the game I was playing instead. This is awesome. The story mode, for the most part, is pretty passable. Sure, the fights are mind-numbingly easy. Hell, there were even a few fights I breezed through without taking more than 2 hits. And yeah, the story was pretty loose and lacked direction, but I'll be damned to admit it didn't get some laughs out of me every now and then.
Where does it come from? My hand? Wait, does it come from my hand? You're starting to infect my brain. Are we gonna actually fight or something? I've already drawn my sword and everything.
And anyone who complains has to eat a big spoonful of that curry as a penalty.
This is turning into a battle that I can't afford to lose.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Naoto Shirogane.
Sean!
Obviously, the main appeal of the story mode is getting to see all these characters interact with one another. It's a crossover game, it's to be expected. Even though I don't know most of these characters, they seem to have a lot of fun with the crossover element. However, this is where I need to nitpick because I feel like the writers of this game didn't actually play Persona 4 as thoroughly as I think they should have. For the most part, they're handled fine, but we're gonna have to talk about the Persona cast. For starters, throughout the whole game, they refer to each other through their last names, which isn't something they do in the core games. I can maybe understand if it was only you. I mean, he was the silent protagonist.
You suck.
And only gained his personality through Arena and the anime. But I'd say Yosuke and Naoto are the worst offenders of this. I feel like the writer saw Yosuke's entrance animations from Arena and kind of took that as his whole character. In Persona 4, Yosuke was a driven guy who, at his worst, was a little bit hot-headed, insecure, and defensive. But at his best, not only was he trying to prove himself to his peers, but he was also trying to prove himself to, well, himself. He was extremely insecure, and he actively wanted to be the hero of his own story. But throughout the events of the game, he came to realize that sometimes the real world doesn't work out how it does in the stories. And he can find a way to be a hero, just in his own way. But in Cross Tag, they just play him up to be some dim-witted klutz who's constantly self-deprecating on himself.
No harm, no foul, right? Says the guy who ran over some poor girl. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut.
Which is something the original Yosuke would never do. Yosuke is an idiot, but he doesn't want to be seen as one. That's part of the appeal. And while Naoto isn't as egregious as Yosuke, she seems to have become somewhat flanderized to just detective girl, constantly thirsting for answers and knowledge, and then being happy to share it with anyone who asks. While the original Naoto was a lot more skeptical, reserved, and almost stoic, they somewhat capture that element to her, often being introduced as spying on others. She very quickly admits to the act with a smile and flashing a badge. She feels more like a Phoenix Wright character more than anything else. But these are just admittedly some very minor nitpicks from a Persona fan. The Ruby cast is handled perfectly fine, and while I can't speak much for BlazBlue and Night Under Birth, they're quite colorful and entertaining despite not knowing of any of them. Under Night and Birth's roster in particular, I found myself really loving, and it's actively made me want to play the game just to learn more about the characters. But how does this game play? Well, it plays fine for the most part. They have a lot of cool mechanics at display. Similar to Marvel vs. Capcom, you can bring in 2 characters into a fight at a time, opening the door to a lot of swapping and call-in combos you can perform with the right combinations, and a variety of inputs, and a lot of more advanced techniques that can be, I could not get good at the game for the life of me. Full credit to Cross Tag. They have a wonderful tutorial mode that goes over every single mechanic and every character's specific section to teach you their unique mechanics and combos. But my brain just couldn't handle it and instantly went bonobo mode, button mashing any button in front of me trying to get a win. The game dude did a good enough job, and it taught me how to grab and do this little DI bounce move and some more specific button combo inputs. But I couldn't really make much of them. But with all these skills honed, I decided to take to the streets of online lobbies and give the world a showing of what I had to offer. I found this guy waiting for a challenger, so I let him know what the stakes were and showed him what I was made of.
Fight back! Fight back! Fight back! Fight back!
Yeah, he was way better than me. So I decided I'd try to leave and find someone else a bit more on my skill level, but he wouldn't let me go, invoking my pride. I hopped back in the arena, gave it my all. I was using multiple interrupts, I was DIing, I had him on the ropes. It's kind of funny, he's slowing down a bit. Is he letting me get a win? No, surely I've just worn him down after all my sick tricks. I've got him down to 1 character, so let's give him all we've got. He's been fucking with me, hasn't he?
Open thy jaw and consume my enemies!
Surely round 3 will do it. 3rd time's the charm, right? Just gotta hit him with all my combos and... 4th time's the charm! He left. Well, since no one else is left for me to play with, we might as well go over the roster. Now, I fully understand that the game has a boatload of DLC content, and that is really cool. Some of it even branches outside of the 4 given franchises, getting more in on the mix. But I do have the no DLC rule, and I'm going to stick to it to the best of my ability, so I'm playing with the core roster that was given to me at launch. For starters, given the name, it's no surprise that the roster is heavily leaning in the direction of BlazBlue characters, having way more in their roster than all the other games, which is totally fair and fully expected. It's a BlazBlue game first. But that doesn't really explain how piss poor everyone else's representation is. Night Under Birth is fine for the most part, but Persona 4 only has 4, and Ruby only has 2? So Persona's showing is pitiful at best, given the fact that they have all the assets already. They have a whole fucking game of animations and combos to rip from, but I suppose they got the main 4 characters in there. But Ruby only having 2 is unacceptable. You know the whole point of that show is that there's 4 of them, right? Without the other 2, it's just Rue. More like ruin the roster. You can't go putting Blake and Weiss in the opening cinematic of the game if they aren't available out the gate. I mean, I guess Ruby didn't have any games to rip from, so it would have been a lot harder for them to make more characters, but... Huh? What's that, Adam? They're already in the game story mode? They're fully coded and functional? Oh, and same with Persona Night Underbirth and Blaze Blue as well.
So what the fuck then?
Yeah, so it turns out before the game's release, the creators came out and said that they were going to launch with 20 characters, with 20 more DLCs coming later, including Blake and Yang. But the majority of these DLC characters were in the game already. I mean, I'm sure this was done so they could make their custom interactions, little chibi avatars, and recolors, but it still feels pretty lame, doesn't it? It's like if Smash Ultimate came out with the roster cut in half, but all the characters were fightable in the World of Light mode still. I guess they got enough backlash for this, specifically for the Ruby representation, because they were very quickly released as free DLC, but I didn't know that until after recording the footage, so the Bumblebee's going to stay outside today. Yeah, it's annoying knowing how much content is withheld for the sake of monetary gain. And playing online, this difference became very abundant, as most matches I won were played against characters I just didn't own. But that's not the character's fault, that's just a me being bad at video games thing, but let's move on. Aside from the roster, the game does have a lot of fan service for the fans to chew on, such as a killer soundtrack and a boatload of references in the purchasable recolors. The Persona crew does an excellent job referencing characters both old and new, such as you having both Minato and Joker recolors with accompanying personas, and Yosuke having Ryuji and... Aikichi Mishima from Persona 2. Nailed it. Ruby has a recolor to reflect her mom, and most importantly, Hazama has skins referencing both Joker and Woody from Toy Story.
I like him already.
On top of all of this, there are pre- and post-fight dialogue that can be had between different combinations of characters to further incentivize mixing and matching, providing additional fan service. So yeah, while this game had a pretty hefty paywall at the time, a matchmaking system that could have really been improved, and a kind of meh story, I don't really think I should be taking it that seriously. For one, I'm bad at fighting games, there's no getting around that. But also, this game is meant to be goofy and nonsensical. How else would all these franchises really cross over with one another? The game was meant to be a very competitive crossover fighting game with fan service for the fans. And that's kind of all it really needs to be, and I think it succeeds in that very damn well. And while yes, the amount of characters behind DLC is incredibly annoying, I've heard a lot of friends talk about how they've bought in this game with all the DLC for as low as $5. So at least it isn't that hard to jump into nowadays. And for what it's worth, in the small amount of time I did get to play this game with some friends, it really was a blast, which is really all it needs to be for me. Cross Tag is going at the top of the C category, but let's see if anything can get above it. So, a little bit of a behind the scenes here. The next video was actually supposed to be beating every PlayStation platformer, so I got a PlayStation Plus subscription so I'd have access to Sly Cooper, Ratchet & Clank, and Jak and Daxter. But when I went out of town to record for the weekend, I learned my hotel Wi-Fi didn't let me stream games through them, but some games it would let me download for immediate play. One of them was Ultimate Street Fighter 4, so we just kind of went from there. My experience with Street Fighter is pretty lackluster. I've of course played Ryu and Ken in Smash Brothers, and I played a round or two of the original arcade machine in a laundromat, but my clothes were getting in the spin cycle better than my opponents were. After playing Blaze Blue and not really getting the hang of the mechanics and inputs, I was really starting to get nervous that I wasn't going to be able to get the hang of any of these games, at least one that wasn't made past 1998. But to my surprise, I actually ended up enjoying Street Fighter infinitely more than I thought I would. And a lot more than Blaze Blue, actually. I was surprised for sure given Cross Tag had instantly more recognizable source material for me, you know, with the likes of Persona, Ruby, and... But Ultra Street Fighter 4 lived up to the hype. Wait, does the Street Fighter community actually like this game? Yeah, okay, luckily this is one of the fandom's favorite games in the franchise, so I picked pretty lucky. I should seriously do more research when picking these games, though. I mean, Cross Tag wasn't even a mainline game. I'm sure people are gonna get mad about that. Maybe I should go back. I guess in my mind, I just always lumped in Street Fighter with Tekken, assuming both of them just had really serious and dark tones. So it was a very welcome surprise when I saw how jovial and animated the cast of Street Fighter was. I decided my best means of saying I completed Street Fighter was to rush through as many arcade sections as I could. Each arcade section plays as a mini campaign mode, similar to how Guilty Gear did it. You pick a character, get an animated cutscene giving you some background of their goals, then play through an assortment of randomly generated fights. Near the end of the run, you'll be met with a special fight called a rival match, where you get yet another cutscene explaining the two characters' relationship, accompanied by unique mid-fight dialogue. After you beat them, and maybe sometimes one or two more fights, you're going up against Seth. From what I played, he's always going to be the final boss of every arcade run, no matter who you're picking. He was a creation created by Bison, who went rogue and now serves as this Taskmaster, Silver Surfer, Gumby conglomerate. The first round, he is fairly standard, but after you get past that, he starts hitting you with moves from across the roster, such as Shoryukens, Sonic Booms, and even Bison's own teleporting movements. After you bash him in with a wrench enough times, you end up getting one last cutscene as a resolution to the character's story. Sometimes the arcade mode wraps up with the Seth plotline, such as Cody. His arcade run starts with him breaking out of prison. Then eventually he kicks the shit out of Seth, then turns himself back in, claiming he's done all that he sought out to do. Meanwhile, in Dan's run, it starts off with an advertisement for his dojo, only to wrap up with him learning he never gave the address to the place.
Oh, but sure, let's not talk about how you just pulverized the silver-toned Bezos over there.
Honestly, I was blown away by the amount of charm the game was throwing at me from start to finish. The amount of cutscenes and custom interactions the game throws at you for each character gives such a great incentive to want to play through all the arcade routes, just to see what the characters have to say and do. I found it especially hysterical that Ryu was a super down-to-earth kind dude who was complimenting and offering advice along the way. But Dan was just a fucking hyper-cuck shit-eater? The element that each character has something unique to say to every other fighter when they beat them is just such an extra effort I really enjoy in these types of games. So surely, given my high praises, I must have been better at this one, right? Was I hawing my Dukins? Was I showing the world my Yuken? No, not even close. No, no. I was getting fucking pulverized when I first started. I went in trying to do arcade with a few different characters, and I would do decently well enough in the first two matches, but every fucking time I got to the third match, it was just walled. I could not do shit against the AI. It ramped up to 11. I tried with Ryu, Evil Ryu, Balrog, nothing was working. I eventually ended up taking to the training room, studying the combos, doing my best to input them all, and still struggling. Unfortunately, the way Crosstag handled their tutorials was much better than how Street Fighter does, because in that game they go over every little detail for the core mechanics and combos for each unique character, where my experience with Street Fighter was they just kind of threw me in a training room with some combos and sent me off to the horses. Wait, it's not horses, send them off to the races. What do you fucking do? I did eventually end up learning some useful techniques on how to quickly get up after I get knocked back and execute my powered up specials by hitting both buttons at the same time. But I learned this all from an over 8-year-old IGN tutorial video rather than the game itself. But whatever works, I guess. But once I did this, something changed. I couldn't go on making this video if I couldn't get past one measly arcade. I wouldn't let myself live it down. You guys wouldn't let me live it down. But worst of all, Adam sure as hell wasn't gonna let me live it down.
Just tech the grab and punish it, fucking idiot.
So off I went. I practiced and practiced, honing my skills, and for once, I felt powerful. I felt like I could best any foe that came in my way. I was no longer a helpless kitten stuck in a tree waiting for the luck of the gods to come down and get me down from the prison I had trapped myself in. I had become the predator. I had become the wolf. Oh yeah, from then on I was unstoppable. I breezed through with Dan. I broke out of my chains with wait, never mind, I'm stuck again. What the fuck? Yeah, okay, one of the biggest nuisances in my experience with this game was this octopus-looking fucker. No matter what I did, he always would grab me. Face grabs, air grabs, finishing grabs, hell, grabs that would catch me if I was landing from a jump. This guy was something else, and I swear to God, I didn't beat him through my own skill. It was just sheer luck that the AI let me win that time. And I swear, it was just him, because after that fight, I was going through the rest with no problem. So yeah, I did a lot better in this game. I think it has to do with the fact that I'm only worried about getting good at one character at a time, not worrying about two at once and combos between the two and, things that people who are good at video games would know how to do. Don't get me wrong, I still wouldn't hold a candle against someone who knew what they were doing. But this was the first time so far where the wires felt so close to clicking in my brain that I knew I was doing shit intentionally. And button mashing was actively yielding me worse results than if I was actually thinking. I honestly even see myself continuing to play it and try to go through all the arcade sections for each character, even after the video. Speaking of, I was going to compliment the game for having a massive roster to pull from, but Adam did point out that the original roster only had like a third of what Ultra ended up having. But I think it's fair to say this is slightly different than DLC. This is an updated and definitive edition of the game that comes with all the content in one reasonable package. Whereas BlazBlue, as of writing this video, requires you to buy the game on top of all the additional content. But even still, remember that game gets off easy for the crazy sales it has. So I suppose it's somewhat of a catch-22, but I'll just leave it at that. I like how many options there are for the game. The only real minor nitpicks I could manage is that I thought it was somewhat annoying that I couldn't see my character's costumes or colors upon selecting them at first, and had to wait until I loaded into the game. And the fact that when I lost, I'd have to go back to the character select screen, pick my character again, then reload back in. It's not a huge deal, and I know why they did it. This is an arcade mode after all. But I just wish I had the option to return to character select or rematch to save some time. Neither of these are game breakers, just minor critiques. Overall, I think the game was great. It's actually going as high as B tier. I liked it a lot more than I expected. Tekken 2! So, remember how we started off the list talking about how wonderfully pleased with Guilty Gear I was, and how it proved to me that fighting games could still hold up, regardless of their age? Well, Tekken 2 proved to me that I can be wrong! Okay, to be fair, Tekken 2 released 3 years prior to Guilty Gear, and was one of the first legitimate attempts at making a 3D fighting game. And from what I've played and watched briefly of future installments, I don't think the franchise is terrible by any means. It seems to have pretty masterfully innovated off of the core concepts laid out in the first few games, and expanded upon them as well, making one of the most intense but entertaining esports to watch. But this is my video and my list, so I get to be the one to say that this 25-year-old game doesn't make me feel good! So we need to first address the most polarizing aspect of Tekken 2, and you all must have noticed it by now, that being its gameplay. We have, once again, an arcade mode where you pick a character, go through a certain amount of matches, get to the end, beat the boss, and get a unique ending. But this time, unlike the others, there are no character unique interactions to be had, which you've probably noticed by now are some of my favorite parts of these games. You do get somewhat of a rival fight, similar to Street Fighter, but it lacks any unique dialogue. And I didn't even notice that's what was happening until it was the third time I didn't realize the face I was pulverizing. All the characters you fight in these matches are actually unlockable characters. At least that's what Wikipedia is telling me, because for some reason, my game refused to give me any of them! The game is one of the simpler titles to get the hang of, having only 4 attack buttons total, one for each corresponding to each limb the character has, making it pretty easy to understand what attacks do what, and get a hang of the combos. And this game also features some sort of critical hit system. Kind of, let me explain. I primarily noticed whenever I was able to kick my opponent in the head, this little yellow spark popped up and did huge damage, and it would save me a lot of time in a fight. But the unfortunate part about all of this is that this is easily the least fun any of these games have felt for me. Every character feels extremely rigid to control, the attacks aren't fun to execute, the music is bland, there's extremely little substance to the characters and world, and okay, I can't fucking take it any longer, the game is actively melting my eyes! I really don't want to be a graphics snob. I know the game is 28 or so years old now, and I know that for the time, 3D graphics like this must have been revolutionary. There were some points specifically in the opening cutscene, the game actually looks pretty damn well. But you get into the matches and you have to look at Polygon Polly over here! And it's not just in the gameplay. Adam, can you pull up the main menus of both Guilty Gear and Tekken and put them up next to each other? Great, thank you. Now, can you do that with the character select screen? Alright, yeah, good job. That's what I wanted to show. Now, I want you to... No, man, not that one. Come on, quit it. It's not too late. We can move on. Roll the next section. Roll the next... The arcade cutscenes are a collection of cognito hazards that should be left in 1995 where they belong. So I've been trying not to take any lore or story into major consideration when ranking the fighting games so far. I'm not prepared to deep dive into all of these universes when some of them span over 10 titles. But almost every single one of these endings are a fever dream. Heihachi's is the only one I got that felt somewhat narratively structured. He fights through a series of opponents to reach Kazuya, defeat him, and then throw him in a volcano. Okay, I didn't explain anything, but there's an arc there. Meanwhile, there's Law. Oh, how I loathe you, Law. Where the only payout we get from his story is doing a better flip than Ken over here? But do you want to know the exact moment that broke me? Please keep in mind, I've been doing nothing the past week other than going to work for 7 hours, come home, and spend 5 hours playing wildly varying fighting games. I go to sleep and I count half-circle-shaped clouds. I dream of perfect blocking the sand. The Sandman tries to twinkle in my eyes. I wake up craving death, but thirsting for finishers. I've been getting to my limit, but this cutscene, this was the hay that broke the camel's back. Please just start the next segment. I can't take it anymore. It's fine.
The King of Fighters 13.
Alright, fine. We'll talk about it. So for all 3 King of Fighter fans out there, I thought I might as well go ahead and take a look and see what this game had to offer. SNK has always been a video game company that's always just been around. Maybe it's just a regional thing, but for most people I know and from what I've seen on social media, not a lot of people knew about these games until Terry got introduced into Smash. But that all ends today. Out the gate, King of Fighters, or Fatal Fury, depending on who you're asking, seems to have a lot going on with its characters and world building. But I'm not gonna pretend to know what's going on. This is the 13th game in the franchise. If I'm not gonna do a deep dive for Tekken 2, what makes you think I'm gonna do that for King of Fighters 13? It is honestly really a shame I don't know what's going on here though, because King of Fighters loves their characters. They seem to do the unique interaction thing the best out of any of the games I've played so far. Not only does every character have something unique to say to each other, not just exchanging 1 or 2 lines, but having full-blown conversations. And every character has something to say to every other character like the games before. And they do a great job helping you get to know these characters even if you haven't played any of the other games before. It was really neat to see. As for the gameplay though, they seem to do something very similar to Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but go in a slightly different direction. What I mean by this is when you start up the arcade mode, you pick a total of 3 characters, and you take all 3 of them into the King of Fighters Championship Tournament. Which means for all the other fights, you're going up against other teams of 3, pinning against each other like crew battles in Smash, going 1 by 1. If you're good enough, you can wipe out the entire enemy team with just your 1 character. But hey, if your character goes down, you've got 2 more at the ready, making a very fresh and non-repetitive gameplay loop. As for the gameplay itself though, it's pretty standard. I'd say in difficulty it falls somewhere in between Guilty Gear and Street Fighter. Honestly, it's nothing too special. It's everything I would come to expect at this point. It's just I'm going through all of the best fighting games of all time, so it's just gonna kinda get sandwiched in between all of those. But to be honest for a second, I wasn't even planning on talking about the game this much. I was originally just planning on keeping that original intro and then moving on to Mortal Kombat. But King of Fighters does something so good that I just have to talk about it. The custom color palettes. Dude, these things are sick! King of Fighters lets you make up to 5 custom color palettes per character. This goes all the way from changing the color of their hair and eyes to their shoes and clothes. It's crazy. I adore when games let me make custom characters like this. And honestly, spent a lot more time making these than I'd like to admit. but it was super fun taking my custom characters into the arcade mode and whomping through the King of Fighters tournament with them. I honestly really wish more games had a feature like this, but I understand the limitations and why it's not possible for a lot of other games. Taking all of that into account, however, I think King of Fighters is pretty fine, honestly. I can probably guarantee you this game would be up in A or B if I knew the source material that well, and was a King of Fighters fan through the beginning. A lot of the sources I found online praise this game as being the best in the franchise, so it needs the credit that it deserves. But for me, it was just pretty passable. It's going to go right above Guilty Gear. Last up on our marathon of the fighting game genre, we have none other than the cult classic Mortal Kombat. Trying to explain the legacy and notoriety of Mortal Kombat would be as pointless as if I tried to do it for Street Fighter. If I'd have to make an outsider perspective, I would go as far to say Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and Tekken are the three pillars of the fighting game genre. So I was excited to sink my teeth into this one after getting through the first two. And I really adored Injustice. So when I found out they were made by the same teams, I was super thrilled. So jumping right into it, this was the first game since BlazBlue that actually had an honest-to-God story mode. So naturally I thought I'd jump in and see what was going on with the gang. Alright, so this one might take a minute. So we start off to see Raiden and some jester-looking dude chilling in the Batcave. Raiden seems to be torturing the dude before beheading him and girl-bossing out of there. But short after, Eve's human Sona comes in and tells him she's got big plans. You keeping up so far? Great, because we're off to the US military base where we find a bunch of soldiers preparing for a mission, but not soon before Baby Cage over here is inducted as the new commander. Now, I don't know much about these characters, but I do know something about Cage. Something about him resonates with me. I couldn't tell you what it is though. It isn't long before Raiden comes crashing down to tell the military it's time to play Luigi's Mansion and go thwart Bowser's castle to stop the ghoulies, cause that's what any demon should fear. The combined efforts of religion and the entire US military. The squad rolls up to the castle, get into some scrapes with some zombie looking fuckers, one said being the Chosen at one point. But we can't ponder on that. Mommy Dearest frags herself and the building stops the ghoulies from ghosting around, but adding one more to their ranks. Daughter cries, Raiden flies, and we're back at the base. Cut to an arena somewhere in the desert where Mermaid Man is about to decapitate Voldemort before Eve from earlier, somewhere in the world, throws the entire world into this weird clash of past and present where all the original fighters come back from what I'm assuming is Mortal Kombat 1 or 2. This leads to hysterics over the world, and okay, I'm out of my league here. Similar to BlazBlue, I would love to do this story justice, but this is the 11th installment in a franchise which I know very little of. For what it's worth, I usually don't like time travel plots and stories, but I think the premise laid out here is done in an excellent way, bringing back characters from the past without it feeling too forced. Now it goes without saying, but at the time of making this video, I haven't completed the full story mode yet. The cutscenes alone are going to take some time to get through. But like Street Fighter before, I actually intend on playing through it more even after the video's completed. But other than the story mode, there's a lot you can sink your teeth into. After every fight in any mode, you find yourself collecting a handful of goodies, primarily cosmetics and currencies. Every character has a variety of cosmetics and accessories they can add and swap out alongside abilities, and even their entrance and exit animations. This way you can customize your character to look and feel however you want them to, giving each character a different set of combos that can really keep the enemy on their toes trying to figure out which ones you have equipped. I think it also benefits that a lot of the outfits and items can only be found when exploring different modes, one of which being the crypt. Okay, so the crypt absolutely blew me away. Instead of having a simple shop to buy items from, Mortal Kombat has the crypt, which is this giant island filled to the brim with treasure that you get to run around in third-person perspective, cracking open chests with the money you've gathered throughout playing the game. Here you can find cosmetics, costumes, and even concept art for locations and characters. The map is huge and plays like a giant Zelda dungeon. There are a variety of puzzles sprinkled in to unlock more chests, and even upgrades like Khan's hammer to bust open pathways and vases to find more coins to buy more treasure. There's a lot going on here. This is such an extra layer of effort and care for what simply could have been a menu that the developers just wanted to go the extra mile on, and I have to give them props for it. I played for a few hours, gathering a bunch of gold, cracking open easily over 20 chests, and I still have plenty to explore. Look at how little of the map I've actually uncovered. But what are some other ways for you to get gold? Well, there's a handful. You of course will get gold rewarded to you by playing through story mode and any local matches you do. But for an added twist, you can spend some times in the game's plethora of towers. The towers come in a few variants. There are the time towers, which are pre-made challenges that cycle out every few days, and then there are classic towers, still predetermined fights, but cataloged with different elevations and levels of challenges. These function more or less as the arcade mode, which, you've guessed it, an arcade mode where you pick a character, go through a certain amount of matches, get to the end, beat the boss, and get a unique ending. A new mechanic that Mortal Kombat adds to its arcade mode, however, there are these occasional green dragon fights. Whenever you get to a floor that has a green dragon spinning around it, that fight will throw up a variety of mini challenges that can be completed throughout the match, such as throwing 5 low attacks or performing 3 grabs. Whenever you complete one of these, you get rewarded with some extra gold for every single one you complete. And whenever you finish or fail one, a new one gets thrown up right away. So if you do things correctly, you can string together a lot of money off of these. If you're good. Which I am not. Now, I was originally planning on doing what I did for the other games and try to at least complete 5 arcade mode runs. But from what I played of Johnny's, they seem to have some major spoilers for the story in them, which I would prefer not diving into just yet. Like I said, I really want to finish the story mode because I'm enjoying the game that much, and I don't want to spoil any of the character arcs for myself. But I will say, if all the other characters have arcade mode endings that correlate with how they reflect on their past or future, I'm going to really enjoy going through them. Because they really utilize that mechanic from the story mode well, and show a whole new layer to each character's perspective. At least, if they do what Johnny did. And learn not to, be a shitty father and bend time do his will. But he brought his wife back, so we can let him have this one. As for the gameplay itself, I think it's pretty damn good. I think it and Street Fighter 4 stand up pretty close to one another. Because while Mortal Kombat just feels a tad bit slower in places, it way makes up for it in its combat potential, environmental stage attacks, and, of course, its gruesome fatalities. I gotta give the game some credit. Mortal Kombat was the first game thus far that gave designated buttons for both blocks and grabs, allowing new players to pick up the game quicker. Sure, I suppose some people could argue it's dumbed down the controls a bit, but this game already has extremely difficult inputs for new players as is. We can let them guard and grab easier. Besides, the fatalities alone require some pretty precise button inputs. I only got like 1 on my own, and not because I was doing it on purpose, but because I was trying to BM the bot by teabagging them. Don't believe me? Here's what 99% of my finishers looked like other than this one. Honestly, Mortal Kombat 11 is fucking great. I can't say it blew me away as much as Street Fighter or Guilty Gear did, but that's kinda cause this was the last game on the list and I'm about 6 games deep. And I was honestly really expecting Mortal Kombat to hold up the best. Not only is it the newest, but I also have a little bit of experience with this game already and I fucking adored what I played. And I'm finally glad to say that I own one of these games for myself. So, it's going at the top of B tier, making it the highest of any of the fighting games thus far. And with that, we've gone through the majority of the famous arcade games on the list. Adam, go ahead and show the progress we've made on the list today. Hey, not bad. We still have a long way to go, but we knocked out 6 games this video. And that's twice as many as last time. So after playing through some key notes of the history of fighting games, what are my takeaways? Well, first and foremost, you might have caught on to a very subtle fact I've been trying to hint at during this video. Why are you doing a whole video on games you are shit at? Absolutely terrible at fighting games. Could not get good at the game for the life of me. Just couldn't handle it. I'm stuck thinking, what the fuck? Yeah, I didn't do so hot at these games. While yes, this genre of gaming seems to be a bit out of my league, I can't say I walked out the same as I walked in. While gathering footage for this video, I ended up having to double back to Crosstag to get some BlazBlue cast specific footage. Then while recording it, I found out I was having a much easier time than I was when I started. Something about getting the muscle memory of doing the specific button inputs and all that really made it a lot smoother of a process for me. Also, if you think these games should be ranked higher on the list and I'm just dogging on them because I'm bad at them, well, fuck you. Hello there. Thank you so much for getting to the end of the video.
Reality can be whatever I want.
If you think these games should be ranked higher on the list and I'm just dogging on them because I'm bad at them, yes, you're absolutely correct. Of course I'm terrible at these games. And of course I'd enjoy them if I knew every bit of lore and I was a pro at all the mechanics. But please remember, all the games in this series for the most part are going into them from a fresh perspective and an unbiased mind. And above all else, it's my personal ranking. Is Tekken 2 really an F-tier game in the grand scheme of things? No, of course not. So please just keep that all in mind when you decide to write a hate comment. But hey, if you still want to hate on me, go ahead. Commenting drives engagement, and that would super help the growth of the channel right now. But that being said, I was genuinely surprised at how this affected the rankings. Sure, we had our first F tier enter the ring, but I honestly wasn't sure if any of these games were going to break the C tier. Yet we had 2 games make it into B, and they're games I actively want to continue playing, so they realistically could go up even further. So overall, I think I'd consider myself a fan of the genre. While I won't be besting anyone online, I can really respect and enjoy the worlds, characters, and narratives these games are able to construct, and share with players through cheeky interactions, world building, and hell, even the soundtracks they pack these games with. When conceptually, all a game of this genre really needs is to have some fun controls and characters. But most of these games do so much more than that, and I have to respect it. Whether you're a novice or a pro, fighting games can be enjoyed by anyone. Playing alone, with a friend on the couch, online, or even competitively. The fighting game genre has provided an infinite supply of enjoyment and memories for the gaming industry. I originally put some of these games here as an afterthought, but now I'm really glad I played them. And they deserve to be on this list for all the reasons listed prior. And I, for one, can't wait to see where these franchises take us in the years to come. Hello there. Thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. I know this one was super long, so if there's anyone in here still watching, make sure to comment down half circle in the comments below. Sure, that'll work. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for being so kind to the last video. I don't think Adam and I really expected it to break 1,000 views. I know we almost certainly didn't. Adam, go ahead and throw up some screenshots of what we were expecting the video to stop at. There were like 5 different times we were like, it doesn't go over 500 views, does it? Because everything else we had put out at that point had never really broken 300. But the last video was a pretty big success. I don't know if it was because the YouTube shorts or maybe just luck with the algorithm, but hey, a lot of you have found the channel through that video, and that's really amazing. So we wanted to kind of continue this format and see where it takes us, so thank you, honestly. I don't really script these end cards, so I'm sorry if this is coming off a bit jumbled. The video after this isn't actually going to be another one in the Beating Every Game franchise. I know Adam and I really need a break from these. These are huge commitments, not only on my time trying to play through these games in time for the video, but it's a whole process where I write and record the lines, then send them to Adam, then immediately have to go play through another game, and we only do it like within 3 or 4 days of every game. It's a real grind, so we're gonna do something a little different next video. I'm super stoked about it. It's gonna be a bit more targeted towards the Pokemon community, if there's any Pokemon fans out there. Just to give ourselves a little bit of a break, give me a little bit of time to play through some of these more strenuous games. The fighting games one was super easy to do because we kind of had loose parameters on how much I had to play, but the next one is going to take a little bit more time. But please stick around, it's still the same type of content, just a different topic. And of course, I'm going to have to thank my good friend Steven. He was the person I bullied for the majority of the first half of the video. A lot of people don't actually know this, but Steven and I were actually friends since middle school, and we both have been trying to get into the content creation game for a while now together. He actually was the editor for the Mario Kart video I put out a couple months ago, which a lot of you have been going back to watch ever since the Beating Every Video Game video, so that's really great to see. Thank you for continuing to check out that work, but seriously, please go check out Steven. He's just so talented, and he deserves the recognition. So if you're a fighting game fan, go look at his channel. You're gonna want to stay there. He's got a lot of plans for some fighting game content, so please make my day and go subscribe to him right after subscribing to me, of course. Also, I want to give an extra special thanks to both Kyle Baca and Class Wizard. Class Wizard is the excellent artist who's done the thumbnails for the past 2 videos, and Kyle Baca's been helping make some new updated art sprites. She actually is the one who made the original Joe PNG that we got a lot of mileage out of in the first video, so we were very happy to go back to her and get some more so we can make these videos a little bit more visually distinct. Both their socials will be up on screen right now. Please go give them a follow. They're wonderful. They're such amazing people, and I want them to have more money! They deserve the money! They're so good! And also going up on screen right now is going to be the artist who's responsible for giving Adam some visual distinction. I don't actually have their social right now. I didn't go through the commissioning process for that, but it's been nice that we have a face to Adam. He's not just a PNG hand anymore. Look at it! Look at this sprite! Isn't it cute? Aw, dude, look at that cutie pie. Alright, Adam, get off this screen. But yeah, go support them as well. I'm sorry, I wish I had your name on hand. But yeah, please support them. They did a wonderful job. Alright, I've rambled on long enough. I'm looking at Audacity. We're almost over 2 minutes here. So thank you so much for watching. If you got through here, comment half circle. People will think you're crazy, but the real ones will know. So thank you guys, and I'll see you Joe-Means later.